so. Here is a question to hold gently tonight, and it may be the oldest question there is. Not why the sky is dark, or how the stars burn, or where the universe came from. Something underneath all of those. Simply this: why is there anything at all? Why is there something rather than nothing? Sit with it for just a moment before it slips away, because it has a way of slipping away. It is so large that the mind slides right off it. We are so used to there being a world that the alternative barely feels real. But try to hold the alternative just for a breath. Not an empty universe, not a dark and silent space with nothing in it. That is still something. That is still space and darkness and silence. Try to hold the thought of nothing at all. No stars, no space, no darkness, no time in which the darkness could last, not even an emptiness for the absence to sit in. Nothing whatsoever. It is almost funny, in a gentle way, how hard that last step is. Try it once more, slowly. Not a black room, not a silent void, not even the dark. All of those are still something. The moment you picture anything at all, even a featureless gray, even a pure and empty stillness, you have already smuggled in a stage for it to happen on, and a stretch of time for it to last. True nothing would not be dark, because dark is a quality. It would not be quiet, because quiet is a sound not being made. It would not last, because lasting needs time. Every handle you reach for comes away in your grip. And that is exactly the point we will keep returning to. The nothing will not sit still to be looked at. Perhaps it was never a thing that could be looked at, or pictured, or chosen at all. And then notice that this is not how things are. There is a universe. There are stars, and worlds, and warmth, and you, lying here, thinking these very thoughts. There is something. And the question, the quiet, enormous question, is why? It is a strange question, because it is one we can ask, but perhaps never fully answer, and we will be honest about that all through this night. This is not a video that will hand you the answer at the end, because no one honestly has it, but it is a video that will walk you, slowly and gently, through everything we have learned about the question, and everything we have learned about the strange, rich, humming thing we so casually call nothing. And that journey, it turns out, is one of the most wonderful in all of human thought, and one of the most restful, because it asks nothing of you, but that you wonder. You do not need to follow every step. You do not need to arrive anywhere. There will be no test in the morning, and no answer you must carry. If you drift off somewhere in the middle, in the quiet space between one thought and the next, that is not a failure. That is exactly what this is for. Let the question be a soft place to lie down in. Let the not knowing be a kind of rest. Because tonight, we are going to look straight at the deepest mystery there is, and find, perhaps to our surprise, that it is not frightening at all. It is gentle, it is spacious, and it is the reason you are here to wonder about it. The person who first sharpened this question into the form we still use lived more than 300 years ago. His name was Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz, and he was one of those rare minds who seemed to work in every field at once, inventing mathematics that we still use, dreaming of machines that could reason, corresponding with half the thinkers of Europe. And somewhere in all of that, he stopped, as anyone might, and asked the simplest and hardest thing of all. Why is there something rather than nothing? He wrote it down, plainly, as a question that any complete account of the world would have to face. And he added a thought that has echoed ever since. Nothing, he said, is simpler and easier than something. Turn that over, because it is the hidden engine of the whole puzzle. Nothing is simpler than something. It feels true, does it not? If you had to guess, before knowing anything, which state the world should be in, you might well guess nothing. Nothing requires no explanation. Nothing has no parts to arrange, no laws to obey, no story to tell. Nothing just is not. It is the plainest possibility there could be. And yet, here we are, surrounded by something, by a universe of staggering richness and size and detail. The plain option was available, in a sense, and the world went the other way. That is the shock at the center of the question. Not that the world is complicated, but that it is here at all, when the simplest thing would have been for it not to be. Leibniz, being who he was, believed there had to be a reason. He held to a principle he called sufficient reason, the idea that nothing is ever simply the case for no reason at all, that for everything that is, there is some explanation why it is so and not otherwise. And if that principle holds, then even the existence of the whole universe must have a reason, some ground on which it stands. His own answer reached toward the divine, toward a necessary being that had to exist and that brought everything else along with it. You may find that answer satisfying, or you may not. And this is not a video that will push you toward any particular one. But hold on to his question, and hold on to his instinct, because both of them will follow us all night. The question, why is there something rather than nothing? And the instinct that surely, there must be a reason. It is worth pausing on that instinct, because it runs very deep in us, deeper than any argument. When we find a coin on the ground, we assume it was dropped by someone. When we hear a sound in the night, we assume something made it. Our minds are built to look for causes, to expect that every effect has a story behind it, and this habit serves us beautifully in daily life. But the great question asks us to point that habit at the largest possible target, at existence as a whole, and it is not at all clear the habit still works there. A cause is always another thing, and here we are asking about all things at once. So the very instinct that makes the question feel so urgent may also be the thing that makes it so hard, because it is reaching for the kind of answer that only ever works inside the world, and trying to apply it to the world entire. Notice the instinct tonight. Honor it, and hold it a little more loosely than usual. But now, let us press on the question itself, gently, because something curious happens when you do. The deeper you look at it, the stranger it becomes, and not only because it is hard to answer. It becomes strange because it is hard even to ask clearly. What are we really asking when we ask why there is something rather than nothing? What would a good answer even look like? And most of all, this one word we keep leaning on, this small and innocent-looking word, nothing. What do we actually mean by it? Because it turns out that almost all of the difficulty and almost all of the wonder is hiding inside that single word. And so, that is where we will go first, not toward the something, toward the nothing. We are going to try, as carefully and as gently as anyone can, to think about nothing at all. So let us try to think about nothing. And let us do it the way you might peel an onion, one layer at a time. Because it turns out, there is not just one nothing. There are many, nested inside each other, each one emptier than the last, and the journey inward is a strange and beautiful descent. Start with the everyday kind of nothing. You open a cupboard and say it is empty. There is nothing in it. But of course there is. There is air in it, whole rivers of invisible molecules, oxygen and nitrogen rushing about. So that is not really nothing. That is just nothing we happen to want. Pump out the air then. Seal the cupboard and draw out every last molecule until you have what we call a vacuum. Now surely that is nothing. An empty box with truly nothing inside. But it is still a box. It still has walls and a shape and a volume. And more than that, the empty space inside it is still space. It has size. It has dimensions, length and width and depth. You could measure it. You could imagine a ruler laid across it. And a thing that has size, a thing you could measure, is not nothing. It is empty space. And empty space, as we will see, is a very rich and surprising something all on its own. So peel that layer away too. Imagine taking away not just the air, but the space itself, the very stage on which the emptiness sat. And already, notice, the mind begins to strain, because it is almost impossible to picture space being taken away. When you try to imagine no space at all, you tend to picture a kind of dark void, a black emptiness. But that black emptiness is still space. It still has an extent, a there for things to be absent from. Real nothing, true nothing, would not even be dark, because dark is a way space can be. It would not be big or small, because those are sizes, and sizes are properties of space. Take away space, and you take away the very possibility of distance, of here and there, of near and far, and you must take away time as well, because even an empty, spaceless nothing, if it lasted, would be lasting through time. There would be a before and an after, a duration, a stretch in which the nothing persisted. And time is something. Time has an arrow, a flow, a structure. So true nothing must have no time either, no before, no after, no lasting, not even an instant for the nothing to be nothing in. And now we are reaching the deepest layer, and it is the one that breaks the mind a little, gently, in the dark. Because if there is no space and no time, then there is also, perhaps, no laws, no rules for how things behave, because there are no things and no when and no where for rules to apply to. No physics, no possibility, nothing that could happen and nothing that could not, because happening itself requires time, and time is gone. This is the deepest nothing, the philosopher's nothing, the true and total absence of everything, including the everything that would let anything be absent. And here is the strange and important truth we arrive at, lying here in the quiet. It may be that this deepest nothing cannot even be described. Every word we reach for, empty, dark, still, silent, waiting, is a word borrowed from the world of something. There may be no honest way to picture it at all, and that, already, tells us something profound about our question. Stay with that for a moment. We set out to think about nothing, and we could not do it. Every picture failed. Every word gave way. Reach for it, and it slips. Try again, and it slips again. That is worth noticing. It is not a small thing. When you cannot even describe the thing you are asking about, the asking gets strange. What is nothing, really? Is it a place? No. Is it a time? No. Is it a state the world could be in? Maybe not even that. And if nothing cannot be pictured at all, then perhaps the contest we imagined, something versus nothing, was never a fair fight. Perhaps it was never a fight at all. Hold that lightly. We will come back to it. For now, just feel how quickly the ground goes soft. Let us climb back up a layer now, to the emptiest kind of something we can actually study, and it is here that physics has one of its most astonishing things to tell us. Because we said that empty space, a true vacuum with every particle removed, is a rich something rather than a nothing. And it is time to make good on that, because the truth of it is stranger and lovelier than almost anyone expects. For a long time, people imagined empty space the way you probably still half imagine it. A perfect blank, a stillness. Take away every atom, every speck of light, every trace of matter, and what remains should be a calm and featureless void, doing nothing, containing nothing, the very picture of emptiness. That is the intuition. And in the last century, physics discovered that it is wrong. Empty space, it turns out, is not still. At the smallest scales, in the finest grain of reality, the vacuum churns. It seethes with a constant, restless activity that never stops and never can. Physicists call it the quantum vacuum, and its central strangeness comes from one of the deepest rules we know, a rule about uncertainty. At the tiniest scales, nature does not permit perfect stillness. There is a kind of unavoidable jitter built into the fabric of things, a rule that says certain quantities can never be pinned down to exactly zero and held there, calm and fixed. And one consequence of that rule is that the emptiness is always trembling. Out of that trembling, something remarkable happens. Pairs of particles flicker into being and vanish again, borrowed from the vacuum for the briefest instant and then paid back before the universe can quite notice. A particle and its opposite, appearing together, existing for a flicker of time and annihilating back into nothing. We call them virtual particles, and they are not merely a fantasy or a bookkeeping trick. Their effects are real and measurable and confirmed. The vacuum, in a very real sense, is foaming with them, a fizz of fleeting existence, everywhere, all the time, in every scrap of empty space, including the space inside you and around you right now. There is even a way to feel their presence, at least indirectly. Bring two smooth plates very close together in a vacuum, closer than the width of a hair, and they will feel a faint push toward each other, a gentle pressure with no visible cause. It comes from the vacuum itself, from the fact that the restless activity of empty space is very slightly different between the plates than outside them. The emptiness pushes. Nothingness, it seems, has a texture you can measure, and this effect has been seen carefully in real laboratories with real plates. The churning of the vacuum is not a story. It is a fact of the world. It took a long chain of careful thinkers and patient experiments to establish it, and it overturned an intuition that had felt obvious for thousands of years. The intuition that emptiness must mean stillness. What the last century of physics found instead is that the ground floor of reality is never entirely at rest, that even in the deepest, coldest, most perfectly evacuated pocket of space, there remains a faint and irreducible trembling that can never be stilled or removed. You cannot switch it off. You cannot cool it away. It is not something in the vacuum. It is the vacuum, the quiet and permanent restlessness of the emptiest thing there is. And here is the part to hold as you settle deeper into the dark. This means that the emptiest possible space, the truest vacuum we can make or even imagine within our universe, is not nothing. It is a something of extraordinary richness. It has energy. It has structure. It obeys laws. It can tremble and foam and push. It is, if you like, the quietest something there is, but it is a something all the way down. And that fact is about to make our great question both harder and, in a strange way, more hopeful. Because if even empty space is this alive, this full, then perhaps the step from nothing to something is not as impossible as it first seemed. Perhaps some have dared to wonder, a whole universe could come from a vacuum like this. And that daring idea is where we turn next. But first, feel the wonder of what we just found. Empty space is not empty. Let it settle into you slowly. The vacuum trembles, it foams, it fizzes with fleeting life, and it is everywhere. It is in this room. It is in the space between your fingers. It is inside your own body, in the gaps between your atoms. You are not sitting in a stillness. You are sitting in a quiet storm. It is far too small to feel. It is far too fast to see. But it is there all the time, humming beneath everything. Does that not change how empty ever really feels? The nothing we point to in daily life is already brimming. And that is only the first surprise. There are stranger ones ahead. So here is the daring idea, and it has a name and a champion, and it caused a great deal of argument, and we are going to walk through all of it slowly and fairly, because it is one of the most interesting conversations in modern thought. We have just seen that the quantum vacuum is restless, that pairs of particles flicker in and out of it constantly. Now stretch that thought. If a pair of tiny particles can flicker into being from the vacuum, then perhaps, once in an unimaginable while, something far larger could too. Perhaps the seed of an entire universe could flicker into existence the same way, a tiny patch of space and energy appearing spontaneously, and then, driven by its own strange physics, ballooning outward, growing, cooling, filling with matter and light, until it became a cosmos like ours. In this picture, the universe is not so much created as it is a kind of enormous, rare, spontaneous fluctuation, a very big something, arising, all on its own, from the churning of a quantum vacuum. The physicist who brought this idea to a wide audience, forcefully and vividly, was Lawrence Krauss, in a book whose very title captured the promise, A Universe from Nothing. His argument, roughly, was that modern physics has taught us that nothing, in the sense of empty space, is unstable. That given the laws of quantum physics and the strange behavior of gravity and energy, a universe not only can but perhaps must arise from that emptiness, without any need for a supernatural push. The vacuum foams, and sometimes the foam is a world. To many people, this landed like a revelation. It seemed as though physics had finally reached down and answered Leibniz, as though the oldest question had been solved in a laboratory and a set of equations. Something can come from nothing, the argument said, and here is how. And it is a genuinely beautiful piece of physics. The idea that empty space is unstable, that it can give birth to matter and even to whole regions of expanding space, is grounded in real and well-tested science. The flickering particles are real. The energy of the vacuum is real. The way a tiny patch of space can be driven to expand enormously. An idea called inflation is a serious and productive part of modern cosmology. There is nothing fringe about the ingredients. If you want to know how a universe might emerge from a pre-existing quantum vacuum, this is a real and fascinating answer, and it deserves the wonder it inspires. But, and this is the turn, and it is an important and honest one, there was a serious objection. And it came not from people who disliked science, but from careful thinkers who loved it, and who felt that in the excitement, a quiet trick had been played on that most slippery of words, nothing. Because the vacuum that gives birth to universes, the foaming quantum emptiness we have been marveling at, is not nothing. It is a something. It is a rich, structured, law-governed something, full of energy and possibility. And so the objection, gently but firmly, was this. You have not explained why there is something rather than nothing. You have explained, wonderfully, how one kind of something, a quantum vacuum, can give rise to another kind of something, a universe of stars. And that is a magnificent achievement. But it is not the same thing. And the difference between those two, it turns out, is the whole of our question. So let us be clear and gentle about what happened here. A wonderful thing was shown. It just was not quite the thing that was promised. How a vacuum makes a universe? Yes, that we can begin to tell. Why there is a vacuum in the first place? That we cannot, and the two are not the same. They only sound the same. That is the whole trouble with the word nothing. It slides. In one sentence it means empty space. In the next, it means the true absence of all things. And the slide is so smooth you barely feel it happen. But everything turns on it. Keep your eye on that one word tonight. Watch where it moves. Half of the mystery lives in its slipping. Let us sit fairly with that objection, because it was made carefully by people who understood the physics, and it cuts to the heart of everything. One of the clearest voices belonged to a philosopher of physics named David Albert, who was also trained in the very quantum theory being invoked. He was not attacking science. He was asking science to be honest about the reach of its own claim. And his point, made gently but without flinching, was about those flickering fields and that restless vacuum. The quantum vacuum, he pointed out, is not the absence of everything. It is a particular physical thing, a state of quantum fields, and quantum fields are as real and as substantial as anything in the world. A field, in physics, is not empty. It fills all of space with a kind of underlying potential, a something that can ripple and vibrate, and its lowest, quietest state is what we have been calling the vacuum. So when we say a universe of particles can arise from the vacuum, what we are really saying is that one arrangement of these fields, the quiet one, can shift into another arrangement, the busy one full of particles. That is a genuine and marvelous fact. But the fields themselves were there all along. They are the stage, the medium, the deep something out of which the flickering comes. Explaining how particles arise from fields is like explaining how a wave arises from the sea. It is true, and it is beautiful, but it is not an explanation of the sea. It certainly is not an explanation of why there is a sea rather than no sea at all. And there is a second something hiding in the story, quieter even than the fields, and in some ways more puzzling. The laws. When we say the vacuum must give birth to universes, we are leaning on the laws of quantum physics, on rules that say how fields behave, on the very principle of uncertainty that makes the vacuum tremble. Those laws are doing enormous work in the explanation. They are why the nothing is unstable, why the foam must froth, why something must come. But then, where did the laws come from? Why are there laws at all, rather than no laws? A true nothing, the deep nothing we tried to imagine earlier, would have no laws in it. Nothing to insist that vacuums must give birth. Nothing to make anything happen or forbid anything from happening. The moment you have laws that guarantee a universe, you already have a something, a governing order, a structure with the power to bring worlds into being. And that structure, too, cries out for the very explanation we were trying to give. The physicist Sean Carroll, who has thought about this as carefully as anyone and who is entirely at home in the science, has made a related and very honest point. He suggests that the demand for an explanation of existence itself may not have the kind of answer we instinctively want. In ordinary life, we explain one thing by pointing to another thing, an earlier cause, a deeper law, a wider context. That is what explanation is. But the universe, taken as a whole, everything that is, may simply have no further thing to point to, no outside, no before, no deeper context in which it sits. And if that is so, then asking why the whole of existence exists may be asking for a kind of answer that the question itself rules out. Not because we are not clever enough, but because we have reached the edge of where the machinery of explanation can go. None of this is a defeat for science, and it is important to say that clearly and kindly. Physics has told us breathtaking things about how our universe unfolded from its earliest moments, how structure formed, how the vacuum behaves, how something as grand as a cosmos can grow from something as modest as a tiny hot patch of space. That is real knowledge, hard-won and well-tested, and we will honor it. But on the very deepest question, the one Leibniz asked, physics may take us to a certain doorway, and then, honestly, stop. It can explain something from something. Whether anything can explain something from truly nothing may be a different kind of question altogether. And so, having looked hard at the something and hard at the physics, we must now go back one more time and look even harder at the nothing and at whether it was ever really an option at all. None of this should feel like a loss. It is not. Look at how far we have come. We know how the universe grew. We know how the vacuum behaves. We know how stars and worlds and atoms formed. That is real. That is hard-won. That is astonishing. The frontier simply lies a little further in than the headline said. And that is fine. That is honest. A good question does not have to be answered to be worth asking. This one may be the best example there is. We can follow it as far as thought reaches, and then we can stand at the edge and look and not pretend. There is dignity in that. There is even peace in it. The edge is not a failure. It is just the edge. Long before Leibniz, long before physics, the ancient thinkers wrestled with nothing too, and one of them said a thing so simple and so stubborn that it has never quite been answered. His name was Parmenides, and he lived in the ancient Greek world, and he made an argument that runs something like this. From nothing, nothing comes. Out of nothing, nothing can arise. Being cannot spring from non-being, because there is nothing there for it to spring from, and no way for it to make the crossing. And therefore, he reasoned, in his severe and beautiful way, there could never have been a time of pure nothing, because if there had ever been nothing, there would be nothing still. The fact that there is something now means, to Parmenides, that there was never truly nothing. Something, in some form, must always have been. Turn that slowly in the dark, because it points at a possibility we have not yet let ourselves feel. What if nothing was never really on the table? What if the deep, total nothing we strain to imagine, the one with no space and no time and no laws, is not a genuine alternative to the world at all, but only a kind of shadow the mind casts, a word that sounds like it names something but perhaps names nothing coherent. We can say the word, we can gesture at it, but we saw, when we tried to picture it, that every image failed, that every property we reached for was borrowed from the world of being. Maybe that failure was not our weakness. Maybe it was a clue. Maybe true nothing is not a way things could have been. Maybe it is not even a possible state at all. If that were so, the whole question would soften in our hands, though it would not quite dissolve. Because then the puzzle would not be, why did something win out over nothing, as though there were a contest between them, a fork in the road where the world happened to go one way. The puzzle would be gentler and stranger. it would be that nothing was never a real road at all, that being simply is, that existence has no genuine alternative, and that our sense of shock, our feeling that there could so easily have been nothing instead, is a kind of illusion born of the way we speak. We are so good at absence. We can empty a cupboard, leave a room, lose a thing, and everywhere in ordinary life, nothing is a real and useful idea, and perhaps we have simply taken that everyday nothing, the absence of this or that particular thing, and stretched it past its breaking point, all the way to the absence of everything, where it may no longer mean anything at all. But be careful and be honest, because this is not a proof, and it does not close the case. A thoughtful person can push right back. Just because we cannot picture the deep nothing does not mean it is impossible. Our failure to imagine a thing is not the same as that thing being incoherent. There are many truths about the universe we cannot picture, and they are true anyway. And the intuition that there might have been nothing is a strong one, not easily dismissed, felt by nearly everyone who has ever lain awake with this question. So we are left, as we so often are tonight, holding two honest possibilities at once and letting neither of them win too easily. Perhaps nothing was never possible, and being simply had to be. Or perhaps nothing was a genuine alternative, and the fact of something is a genuine wonder that still cries out for a reason. We do not have to choose. We only have to notice how much quieter the question becomes when we hold the first possibility gently in mind. That maybe, just maybe, there was never really a nothing for the something to have to overcome. Turn that once more before we move on. What if there was never a nothing? Not ever? Not as a real possibility at all? Then the shock softens. The world did not beat the odds. There were no odds. Being simply is, and always was, and could not have failed to be. It is a strange thought. It does not close the question, but it loosens its grip. Maybe the feeling that there could have been nothing is just a habit of speech. We empty cupboards. We leave rooms. We are so used to small absences. And we stretched that, quietly, to the absence of everything, where it may mean nothing at all. Or maybe not. Maybe nothing was a real road, and something is a real wonder. We do not have to decide tonight. We only have to notice how the question breathes. Let us come down now, from the highest and airiest reaches of the question, to a version of it that physics can actually get its hands on, and that is quietly astonishing in its own right. Because there is a smaller, sharper form of why is there something rather than nothing, and it is not about the whole of existence. It is about the matter you are made of. And for this one, we have real clues and a real and unsolved mystery, and it is one of the loveliest puzzles in all of physics to fall asleep wondering about. Here is the setup. When matter is made, in the deep processes of physics, it tends to come in balanced pairs. For every particle of ordinary matter, there is a mirror image partner, a particle of what we call antimatter, identical in almost every way, but opposite in certain properties. And when a particle of matter meets its antimatter partner, they do not simply bump and bounce. They annihilate. They vanish, both of them, converting entirely into a flash of light, of pure energy, leaving no matter behind at all. Matter and antimatter, meeting, unmake each other completely. Now go back to the very early universe, to the hot and dense first moments after the beginning. In that furnace, matter and antimatter were being created in enormous quantities out of the raw energy of the young cosmos. And if the balance had been perfect, if exactly as much antimatter was made as matter, then as the universe cooled, every particle would have found its partner, and every pair would have annihilated, and all of it, every last bit, would have turned back into light. The universe would have become a vast, expanding sea of radiation, cooling and thinning forever, with no matter in it at all. No stars, no worlds, no you. A cosmos of pure light and empty space, which is, for our purposes, a kind of nothing. A something so featureless it might as well be. But that is not what happened. We are here. There are stars and planets and bodies and books. Matter survived, and so something in that early furnace must have tipped the balance ever so slightly in favor of matter over antimatter. Not by much. The best estimates suggest that for every billion particles of antimatter, there were about 1,000,000,001 particles of matter. A tiny excess, 1 part in 1,000,000,000. And when the great annihilation came, and the billion pairs vanished into light, that one leftover particle in every billion had no partner to meet, and so it survived. And everything you have ever seen, every star in every galaxy, every atom in your own hands, is built from that thin surviving remainder. The whole material universe is the tiny surplus that was left over after the great mutual vanishing. We are the rounding error. We are what was left when almost everything canceled out. And here is the mystery, the part still unsolved, the part worth carrying gently down toward sleep. We do not fully know why there was an excess at all. The known laws of physics, as best we can write them, come close to treating matter and antimatter as perfect equals, and perfect equals should have annihilated completely. Something must break that symmetry, just slightly, must have favored matter over its mirror by that one crucial part in 1,000,000,000. Physicists have found tiny hints of such an imbalance in their experiments, small asymmetries in how certain particles behave. But it is not yet enough to fully explain why we are here. It remains, right now, tonight, an open question at the frontier of physics. Why is there matter rather than none? Why did the great cancellation leave a remainder instead of balancing perfectly to zero, to light, to a luminous nothing? We do not know. And there is something wonderful in lying here, made of that very remainder, wondering why you were spared, why the books balanced imperfectly enough to leave a world and a night and a mind to ask. Sit with how close it came. 1 part in 1,000,000,000. That is all that stood between a universe and a flash of empty light. Tip the balance the other way, and there are no stars, no worlds, no you, just radiation, cooling forever, in the dark. But the balance tipped toward matter, just barely. And here we are. Does that not feel almost impossibly narrow? 1,000,000,001 against 1,000,000,000, and everything you have ever loved is built from the one that was left. Every hand you have held, every face you have known, all of it, the surplus, all of it, the remainder. We are what did not cancel out. We are the little that was spared, and no one yet knows quite why. It is one of the loveliest open questions there is. There is another physical clue worth turning over slowly, and it is one of the strangest and most beautiful, and it must be held with a careful and honest hand, because it is easy to overstate. It is the idea that the total amount of stuff in the universe, when you add it all up in just the right way, might come to almost nothing at all. Let me build it gently. Everything you can see, every star and world and body, is made of matter, and matter carries energy, a great deal of it, bound up in its very mass. If you added up all the energy of all the matter in the universe, you would reach a staggering, almost unthinkable sum. It would seem that the universe is full to the brim with positive energy, a vast and undeniable something. That is one side of the ledger. But there is another side, and it is easy to forget. because it does not shine or announce itself. Gravity. Everything that has mass pulls on everything else, and that pulling represents a kind of energy too, but a negative one. It takes energy to pull things apart against gravity, which means that things drawn together by gravity are, in a sense, in an energy debt, a negative balance. And when physicists try, carefully, to add up all of that negative gravitational energy across the whole universe, they find that it is enormous as well, a vast negative sum mirroring the vast positive sum of all the matter. And here is the remarkable possibility. Those two might very nearly cancel. The great positive energy of all the matter and the great negative energy of all the gravity may add up across the entire cosmos to something very close to zero. It is as though the universe borrowed an immense amount of positive energy to make all its matter, and paid for it exactly by going into an equally immense gravitational debt, so that the books, taken as a whole, balance to nearly nothing. Some have called this the ultimate free lunch, a universe that, in its total accounting, costs almost nothing at all, because every bit of positive was matched by a bit of negative. Now, why does this matter for our question? Because if the total energy of the universe is essentially zero, then in one narrow but real sense, the gap between a universe and no universe is much smaller than it looks. A whole cosmos with a net energy of zero is, energetically, not so far from an empty vacuum with an energy of zero. And that makes the idea of a universe flickering into being a little less outrageous, because it would not require conjuring some enormous quantity of energy out of thin air. The immense something we see might be, on balance, a very cheap something, a great and intricate structure that nets out to almost nothing. But hold this loosely and hear the honest caution, because it matters. This is a real and serious idea, discussed by real physicists, and there is genuine evidence that the universe is very finely balanced in something like this way. But adding up the total energy of the entire universe is subtle and difficult, and in the strange geometry of a cosmos, energy does not always behave the way our everyday intuition expects. Whether the total is exactly zero, and what that would truly mean, remains open and debated. And even if it is zero, notice that it does not touch the deepest question at all. A zero-energy universe is still a universe. It still has fields, and laws, and structure, and the very rules that let the positive and negative balance so neatly. It might explain why the something was affordable. It does not explain why there was any accounting, any energy, any law of balance in the first place. It is a gift, but it is a gift wrapped inside the same great mystery. And so, holding it as the lovely and limited clue that it is, we turn toward the hardest part of all, which is not any particular answer, but the question of whether this question can have an answer at all. So slow down here, because this is the real hinge of the night, not which answer is right, whether an answer is even possible. Think about what an answer would have to do. It would have to explain all of existence, and it would have to do it without using anything that exists. Can you see the trap? Whatever you name, it is a something, and a something is part of what we were trying to explain. So it cannot be the ground of everything. It just moves the question back a step. Try it yourself, softly, as you lie there. Name a reason for everything. Then ask why that reason is there. The question follows you. It always follows you. That may be the deepest thing it has to teach. So let us face it directly, in the gentlest way, this question of whether our question can even be answered. Because there are really only a few shapes an answer could take, and it is worth walking through each of them slowly, the way you might try each door in a quiet house, one after another, to see which are locked. The first door is the one Leibniz walked through. It says that there is something rather than nothing, because there exists something that had to exist, something that could not possibly have failed to be. Philosophers call this a necessary being, and it need not be pictured in any one way. The idea is simply that most things are contingent. They happen to exist but might not have. A tree, a star, a person, all could have been otherwise. But if everything were like that, if every single thing were the kind of thing that might not have been, then the whole collection would seem to hang in the air with nothing to hold it up, and we would still be asking why any of it is here. So perhaps, the thought goes, there must be at least one thing that is different, one thing whose very nature is to exist, that could not be, and that serves as the ground for all the rest. This is a serious idea, held by serious thinkers across many traditions. Its difficulty is that it is very hard to say what such a thing could be, or to show that it must exist, rather than simply asserting that it does. But it is a real door, and many have found rest behind it. The second door says something almost opposite, and it is bracing in its plainness. It says that there is no reason, that the existence of something is what we might call a brute fact, a truth with no deeper truth beneath it, a place where explanation simply runs out. On this view, the universe exists, and there is no why, not because the why is hidden from us, but because there is no why to be had. Every chain of explanation has to end somewhere, and perhaps this is where it ends, at the bare fact of being, full stop. Many people recoil from this door because it feels like giving up, like a refusal to answer. But others find in it a strange calm. Every worldview, after all, even Leibniz's, has to stop somewhere, has to plant its feet on some final ground it does not further explain. The brute fact view simply plants its feet a little earlier, at existence itself, and says, this is where the questions end, and that is not a failure, but the honest shape of things. The third door is the endless corridor, the one that never quite closes. It says that every something is explained by a prior something, world by earlier world, cause by earlier cause, in a chain that stretches back without end. There was never a first moment, never a beginning to point to, only an infinite regress of befores. Some find this satisfying, because at every step there is an explanation, no link left dangling. Others find it no answer at all, because even an infinite chain of somethings, each leaning on the last, does not explain why there is a chain, rather than no chain, why the whole endless corridor exists instead of nothing whatsoever. The corridor answers every small question, and leaves the largest one exactly where it was. And there is a fourth possibility, quieter than the others, and it is the one that has been growing beneath this whole night. It is that the question, for all its grandeur, may be subtly malformed, that in asking why there is something rather than nothing, we may be using the machinery of explanation outside the only place it works, like trying to ask what lies north of the North Pole. The question feels perfectly sensible. The words all fit together. And yet there may be no possible answer, not because reality is hiding one, but because the question, at the very end, quietly folds back on itself and asks for something that cannot be given. We do not know if this is so, but we should hold it open alongside the others as we begin, now, to turn the whole matter toward rest. Let us not rush past those 4 doors. Each one is a real place a thoughtful person has stood, the necessary being, the brute fact, the endless corridor, the question that folds on itself. None of them is silly, none of them is easy. And notice something gentle. Every one of them, in the end, has to stop somewhere. Every worldview does. Every single one plants its feet on some final ground and goes no further. Even the most confident answer, pressed hard enough, arrives at a place where it simply says, "This is where the asking ends." So no one truly escapes the mystery. We only choose where to meet it. And there is a strange comfort in knowing that. You are not behind anyone. The wisest minds are standing at the same edge you are. There is a further wrinkle worth laying gently beside all of this, because it sharpens the wonder in a particular way, and it has kept many careful people up at night. It is not only that there is a something, it is that the something seems, on close inspection, to be balanced with a strange and delicate care. When physicists write down the rules of our universe, they find that those rules contain certain numbers: the strength of gravity, the strength of the force that binds atomic centers together, the mass of the tiny particles, and so on. These numbers are not predicted by any deeper theory we yet have. They are simply, as far as we can tell, the settings our universe happens to have. And here is the unsettling part. If several of these settings had been even slightly different, the universe would have been barren. Nudge the strength of gravity, and stars either never form or burn out in an instant. Change the balance of the forces inside atoms, and the chemistry that makes water and carbon and living things becomes impossible. Adjust the energy of empty space by a tiny fraction, and the whole cosmos either flies apart too fast for anything to gather, or collapses back on itself before it can begin. Across a whole range of these numbers, the hospitable settings, the ones that allow stars and worlds and life, seem to occupy only a narrow band. The dials, somehow, are turned to values that permit a rich and structured and living universe, and no one fully knows why. Now, be careful here, and be honest, because this is a place where it is easy to say more than we know. That the universe looks finely balanced for structure is a real observation, taken seriously by serious physicists. But what it means is fiercely debated, and no one should pretend otherwise. Some see in it a genuine puzzle demanding explanation. Some suspect that a future theory will show that these numbers could only ever have been what they are, locked in place by some deeper rule we have not yet found, so that the fine balance is no accident, but a necessity. Some point to the multiverse, the idea we are about to meet, in which countless universes try countless settings, and we simply find ourselves in a rare, hospitable one, because only the hospitable ones can be found from within. And some caution that we should be wary of reading too much into it, that we know of only one universe, and that judging the odds from a single case is a treacherous business. All of these are live and reasonable positions. This is not settled ground, and we will not pretend to settle it. But hold the plain fact of it as you drift, because it is wondrous, however it is finally explained. The universe did not have to be the kind of place that could grow stars and cook the elements of life inside them, and gather those elements into worlds, and give rise, at least here, to minds. It could, for all we can see, have been sterile, a cosmos of thin gas and nothing more, expanding forever with no one in it. And instead, it turned out to be this, a universe rich enough, and stable enough, and finely enough poised, to build its way to living, wondering things. Whether that is chance or necessity, or selection among many worlds, we do not know. But you are lying in the narrow band that allows a you to lie in it at all. And there is something quietly staggering in that, worth one soft moment of gratitude before sleep. That of all the ways a something could have been, ours is one that could hold a warm room, and a slow breath, and a mind at the edge of rest. There is one more idea to lay gently on the table before we begin to let the questions soften and it comes at the whole thing from a surprising and rather humbling angle. It does not try to explain why there is something rather than nothing. Instead, it asks a quieter question. Given that we are here to wonder at all, should we be surprised by what we find? The idea grows out of a simple but easily overlooked fact. The only kind of universe that can ever be wondered about is a universe that contains wonderers. A cosmos with no one in it asks itself no questions. It sits, whatever it is, unremarked. So the very fact that this question is being asked tonight by a mind lying in the dark tells us that we must live in the kind of universe where such minds can exist. And that is not a trivial condition. A mind like yours requires an astonishing amount of structure. It requires stable matter, and long-lived stars to forge the elements, and worlds for those elements to gather on, and billions of years of patient chemistry, and laws finely suited to all of it. A universe that flashed into being and immediately collapsed, or one whose laws forbade atoms, or stars, or complexity, would never produce anyone to notice its emptiness. Only a universe capable of growing wonderers gets wondered about. Some thinkers take this further, into the idea of a multiverse, and it is worth describing fairly, as the speculative but serious proposal it is. Perhaps our universe is not the only one. Perhaps the deep processes that gave rise to it give rise to many, countless regions or realms, with different properties, different strengths of forces, different laws. Most of them, in this picture, would be barren, hostile to structure, empty of anyone. But here and there, by chance, a universe would turn out hospitable, would have just the right character to grow stars and worlds and minds. And of course, those are the only ones that could ever be observed from within, because they are the only ones with anyone inside to do the observing. On this view, we should not be surprised to find ourselves in a universe suited to life, any more than a fish should be surprised to find itself in water. It could not have found itself anywhere else. Now, be careful with this, and be honest, because it is easy to ask too much of it. Even if there is a multiverse, even if we exist in a rare, hospitable corner of it, because only such corners can be inhabited, this still does not answer Leibniz. It explains, perhaps, why we find ourselves in a universe friendly to life rather than a hostile one. It does not explain why there is a multiverse rather than nothing, why there is any ensemble of universes at all, any process to spawn them, any laws to govern the spawning. The deepest question simply steps back one more level and waits for us there, patient as ever. The multiverse, if it exists, is a very large something, and our question was never about how large the something is. It was about why there is any of it whatsoever. But the humbler half of the idea, the part about wanderers, is worth keeping close as you drift, because it is strangely tender. It means that your existence and the universe's habitability are not two separate facts, but one. You are not a visitor who arrived in a universe that happened to be ready. You grew out of it, are made of it, are the universe's own matter, arranged into something that can look back at the whole and ask why it is here. The cosmos did not produce you as an afterthought. In you, and in every wondering mind, it became able to notice itself. And whatever the final answer to our great question may be, or whether there is one at all, there is something quietly miraculous in that the something, whatever it is and however it came to be, folded itself here and there into shapes that could marvel at their own existence. You are one of those shapes, and that is reason enough to rest easy in the not knowing. So hold that close as the night deepens. You are not looking in at the universe from some window outside it. There is no outside. You are inside the something. You are made of the something. Your bones, your breath, your very thoughts, all of it is the universe arranged. So when you wonder why anything exists, listen to what is really happening. The something is wondering about itself. A piece of the cosmos woke up, and it looked around, and it asked why it is here. Is that not the strangest and loveliest thing? Not that there is a universe, but that the universe grew eyes and turned them on itself and marveled. You are one of those eyes. Tonight, you are the universe, looking gently at its own existence and getting sleepy. There is a line that one of the great physicists of our age once wrote, and it has stayed with almost everyone who has read it, because it captures the whole ache of this question in a single breath. Stephen Hawking, near the end of a book in which he had laid out how the universe might be described completely in terms of elegant laws and clean mathematics, stopped and asked the thing his equations could not reach. What is it, he wrote, that breathes fire into the equations and makes a universe for them to describe? Why does the universe go to all the bother of existing? Sit with that phrasing for a moment, because it is doing something gentle and profound. Hawking had spent his life writing down the rules, the mathematics that seem to govern how the cosmos behaves, laws so precise they can predict the light of the first moments and the spin of distant galaxies. And he saw, clearly and humbly, that even a perfect set of laws would only ever be a description. A set of equations sits quietly on a page. It does not, by itself, catch fire. It does not, by itself, make a world. You can have the most complete rule book imaginable for how a universe unfolds, and still there is a further fact, a further mystery, standing entirely apart from the rules. That there is a universe for the rules to be true of. That the fire is lit. That the bother of existing was, somehow, gone to. Hawking himself worked on a beautiful idea with the physicist James Hartley about the very beginning, an idea sometimes called the no-boundary proposal. In ordinary thinking, we imagine the beginning of the universe as a first moment, an edge of time, a starting line, and we ask what came before it or what set it going. Their idea, gently, was that there might be no such edge at all. That if you follow time back toward the beginning, it does not end in a sharp wall or a first instant needing a cause, but curves smoothly, the way the surface of the earth curves near the pole, so that there is no boundary, no first point, nowhere to stand and ask what came before, because there is no before. The universe, in this picture, would be finite in the past, but without a beginning edge, complete in itself, needing no outside cause to start it, because there is no first moment for a cause to act at. It is a subtle and lovely idea, and it may or may not be right, and it is still discussed and debated at the frontier. But notice, and this is the honest and recurring note of our whole night, that even this does not answer the deepest question. It might remove the need for a first cause in time, a hand to push the universe into motion. It does not remove the wonder of Hawking's own question. Even a universe with no beginning edge, smooth and self-contained, is still a universe that exists rather than not. The fire is still lit. The equations, however elegant, still describe a something. Take away the starting line, and you have not taken away the existing. You have only made the existing seamless, beginningless, and no less astonishing. And I think there is a kind of peace to be found, precisely there, at the place where the greatest minds set down their tools and simply wonder. Hawking did not pretend to answer his own question. He asked it plainly at the end of all his equations and left it open, glowing, like a small fire in the dark. There is no shame in that. There is, if anything, a great dignity in it, the dignity of a mind that knows exactly how far its knowledge reaches and is honest about where it stops. We can take our own place in that long line of wanderers tonight and ask the question as clearly as we can and follow it as far as thought will go. And then, when the tools run out, simply lie back and marvel that there is anything here to marvel at, that the fire was breathed into the equations, that the universe went to the bother, that you are here, warm and awake, a small ember of that same fire, wondering why it burns at all. Let us stay in that warm and open place a little longer. Hawking knew the equations as well as anyone alive, and still he asked the question. He did not solve it. He honored it. There is a lesson in that, soft as it is. You do not have to conquer a mystery to love it. The greatest minds did not. They asked, and they looked, and they wondered, and they let it stay open. So you are allowed to do the same. You are allowed to lie here and not know. You are allowed to find the not knowing beautiful. What breathes fire into the equations? No one knows. Say it plainly, without fear. No one knows. And the stars still shine, and the night is still gentle, and you are still here. Let us stay a while in that open place, because it deserves more than a passing glance, this idea that the question might not have an answer, and that this might be all right. We are so trained to think of an unanswered question as a problem, a gap, a thing that needs closing, that we can miss the possibility that some questions are meant to be lived with rather than solved. And this one, perhaps more than any other, may be like that. Think of what it would even mean to truly answer it. Suppose someone came to you tonight and said, "Here, at last, is the reason there is something rather than nothing." Whatever they offered, you could always, gently, ask one more time. But why is there that? If they pointed to a law, you could ask why there is that law. If they pointed to a necessary being, you could ask why there is a being of that kind. If they pointed to a quantum vacuum, we have already seen you can ask why there is a vacuum, why there are fields, why there are rules for them to obey. Every answer, by its very nature, is a something, and every something, offered as the ground of all the rest, becomes a new place to plant the same old question. The question has a way of walking right through every answer, like a key that fits no lock because it was cut to fit them all. That is not a flaw in our thinking. It may be the deepest thing the question has to teach us, that it is not the kind of thing that has a bottom. And there is a way to feel that not as frustration, but as a kind of spaciousness. Most questions, when answered, close. You learn the answer, and the wondering ends, and you move on. But this question never closes, and so the wondering never has to end. It stays open all your life, a small door left ajar onto the sheer strangeness of there being anything at all. You can return to it any night you like, and it will be exactly as fresh and as bottomless as it was the first time you felt it as a child, lying awake, suddenly struck that there is a world. That freshness is a gift. A solved mystery is a mystery you can only visit once. This one, you can visit forever. There is also a quiet humility in it that can soften a restless mind. We are very young as a species and very small, one kind of creature on one world around one ordinary star, thinking with brains that evolved to find food and read faces and remember where the water was. It would be strange, almost arrogant, to expect that such creatures, so recently arrived, should be able to fully answer the largest question there could ever be, the question of why there is a universe at all. That we can even ask it is astonishing. That we cannot fully answer it is no shame. It is exactly what we should expect, and there is rest in accepting it, in setting down the demand that we must understand everything before we can be at peace. You do not have to solve existence tonight. No one ever has, and the world has gone on being wonderful anyway. So let the question be what it most naturally is, not a problem pressing for solution, but an invitation to wonder. You can hold it the way you might hold a smooth stone found on a beach, turning it over, feeling its weight, marveling at it, without needing to break it open to see what is inside. The wonder is the point. The wonder is enough. And it may be that the highest and healthiest response to the deepest question there is not a triumphant answer, but a quiet, open, grateful astonishment that there is something, that you are part of it, that, against the plain and simple possibility of nothing at all, here is a whole universe, and here is a night, and here is you, awake in it, wondering. Let that astonishment be soft now, and here is a quiet way to hold it, if you like. Do not treat the question as a lock to be picked. Treat it as a stone to be turned. You do not break a beautiful stone open. You just hold it. You feel its weight. You marvel at it. And then you set it down. The question of why there is anything is like that. It does not want to be smashed into an answer. It wants to be held and wondered at and set gently down. So that is what you can do now. You have held it long enough tonight. You have felt its weight. There is nothing more it asks of you. Let your hands open. Let the stone rest on the sill, and let yourself grow heavy and calm. Let it be the last gentle thought before we begin, together, the long, slow walk down into sleep. Before the descent, let us gather a few smaller wonderings, the way you might gather warm coals close before sleep, because the great question has many small and lovely faces, and turning them over is a soft and pleasant thing to do in the dark. Here is one. Notice that you have felt this question before, almost certainly, long before you had any words for it. Nearly everyone, at some point in childhood, is struck by it, suddenly and without warning. A child lying in bed, or staring at the ceiling, or watching dust turn in a shaft of light, is abruptly seized by the sheer strangeness of there being anything at all, of being here, of the world simply going on. It can be dizzying, even frightening for a moment, and then it passes, and we grow up, and we forget, because a mind cannot hold that much wonder and still remember to eat breakfast. But it was real, that early astonishment, and it was true, and it never entirely leaves. Tonight, in a way, you are simply returning to it, on purpose, gently, as a grown person who can hold it now without fear. The child who first felt the shock of existence and the adult wondering tonight are the same, meeting again over the oldest question there is. Here is another. Consider how completely we take the something for granted, and how strange that is. You woke this morning into a world already here, and you moved through it all day without once being astonished that it existed. The floor held you, the air filled your lungs, the light arrived from the sun, as it has for billions of years. Not once did the world flicker, or hesitate, or ask permission to go on being. We rely, utterly and constantly, on the sheer dependability of there being something, and we never thank it, because it never fails. But it is worth pausing, just once, tonight, to feel the wonder hidden inside the ordinary, that there is a world to wake into, that it stays. That being is so reliable, we can build a whole life on it without ever noticing the ground. Here is a third, and it is perhaps the tenderest. You are not standing outside the something, looking in at it and asking why it is there. You are made of it. The very atoms of you were forged in ancient stars, scattered across space when those stars died, gathered into a world, worked by billions of years of patient chemistry into a living, thinking being. When you ask why there is something rather than nothing, it is the something asking. It is a piece of the universe, arranged just so, wondering about itself. There is no separation to bridge, no window to peer through. The mystery is not out there. It is lying here, breathing slowly, warm under the blanket, thinking these thoughts. You are not a spectator of existence. You are a small living instance of it, one of the ways the something took shape and woke up. And here is a last one, to hold as everything begins to soften. Whatever the final truth may be, whether there is a necessary being, or a brute fact, or an endless corridor, or a question that quietly folds back on itself, none of it changes the one thing you can be sure of tonight. There is something. You are here. This moment is real. This breath, this quiet, this warmth. The great question, for all its depth, does not take that away. If anything, it makes it shine. Against the plain possibility of nothing at all. Everything you have, every ordinary thing, the dark room, the weight of your own body, the slow rhythm of your breathing, becomes a kind of quiet astonishment, a something that did not have to be, and yet is. And you do not have to understand why in order to rest in it. You only have to let yourself feel, for one soft moment, how strange and how lovely it is that there is anything here at all. And you can practice that feeling, softly, any time you like. It does not take a telescope or a theory. It takes only a pause. The next time you hold something warm, or watch the light move across a wall, or hear rain, you can let the plain fact arrive for just a breath. This is here. This exists. It did not have to. There might have been nothing, and instead there is this. That small turn of attention is available to you always, and it costs nothing, and it can make the most ordinary moment shimmer a little. A cup of tea becomes a small miracle of existence. A patch of sunlight becomes a wonder, not because anything changed, but because you remembered, for a moment, that being is not owed to us, that the something is a kind of gift with no giver we can name, offered freely, all the time, everywhere, including here, including now, including you. Most nights we are far too busy to feel it. Tonight you are not busy at all. Tonight you can simply lie here and let the sheer astonishing fact of existence rest on you like a warm and weightless blanket, asking nothing, giving everything, holding you softly in the dark. It is worth remembering, as the night deepens, that you are far from the first to lie awake with this. The question of why there is anything is perhaps the most human question there is, and nearly every people, in nearly every age, has reached toward it in its own way, with its own images, long before there were telescopes or equations. And there is a quiet companionship in that, in knowing that for as long as there have been minds, there have been minds turning this exact thing over in the dark. The oldest stories the world remembers often begin not with a bang, but with a kind of formless deep, a vast dark water, or a shapeless void, or a silence out of which everything slowly came. Again and again, across cultures with no contact between them, the imagination reached for the same picture. Before the world, an emptiness. And then, somehow, a stirring, a separation, a first light, a first division of the waters, and being began. It is striking how consistent that instinct was. This sense that something must have come from a prior nothing or near nothing, and that the coming was the great and holy event, the thing most worth telling. These were not physics. They were something older and different, ways of holding the wonder, of giving the heart a shape to rest the question in. And the wonder they held is the very same one we hold tonight. The philosophers, when they came, sharpened it in their own ways. Some, like Parmenides, whom we have met, argued that being had to be eternal, that nothing could come from nothing, and so something must always have been. Others wondered whether the world was made, or whether it simply always was, a debate that ran for centuries, and in some forms runs still. Some traditions spoke of a creation out of nothing, a bringing forth of the world from no prior stuff at all, by a will or a word. Others spoke of emptiness and form as two faces of one reality, the empty and the full flowing into each other, neither one able to stand alone. There is deep and careful thought in all of these, far more than we could honor in a single night, and this is not the place to weigh one against another. What matters, lying here, is the shared human reaching, the fact that the largest question has drawn the finest attention of every age, and has never been fully closed by any of them. And then came the moderns, with their instruments and their mathematics, and for a while it seemed as though the old question might be dissolved by new knowledge, or answered, or set aside as unscientific. But it kept returning, even to the scientists, even in the middle of their equations, as we have seen with Hawking. You cannot chase this question away by learning more. Learn how the stars form, and you can still ask why there is anything to form them. Learn how the universe expanded from a hot, dense state, and you can still ask why there was a state to expand. Each new discovery is a triumph and pushes the frontier back and answers 100 smaller questions along the way. And the great question sits behind all of them, unmoved, patient, exactly as deep after every discovery as it was before. That is not a mark of our failure. It is a mark of what kind of question it is. It lives on a level that no particular fact can reach, and so it survives every fact and waits for each new generation to find it again and feel the old astonishment fresh. So you are in long and good company tonight. Every wanderer who ever lay beneath these same stars, in every land and every age, telling their stories of the formless deep, arguing in their schools about being and non-being, scratching equations by candlelight. All of them were circling this one quiet fire, the same one you are warming your hands at now. You do not have to finish what none of them could finish. You only have to take your turn at the wondering, and then, when you are ready, hand it gently on and rest. Think of the long line you belong to. People in every age lay where you are lying now, in the dark, awake, struck by the same soft astonishment. They had no telescopes. They had no equations. They had only the same question and the same stars. And they wondered, exactly as you are wondering. You are not alone in this. You never were. Across thousands of years in every land, minds have turned this over in the quiet before sleep, and not one of them finished it. And that is all right. The question was never a task to complete. It is a fire to gather around. You have taken your turn at it tonight. That is enough. Now you can let the next wanderer take theirs and close your eyes. Let us turn, for a gentle while, from why there is something to what that something turned out to be. Because the story of our particular universe, once it was here, is one of the most soothing tales there is, and it is worth telling softly as the hour grows late. We may never know why there is anything, but we have learned in astonishing detail what the anything did once it began. And that story is all warmth and patience and slow becoming. It begins, as far as we can see back, with a state unimaginably hot and dense, the whole of everything we can now observe gathered into something smaller than you could hold, seething with energy. And then expansion, not an explosion into space, but a swelling of space itself, everywhere at once, carrying everything apart and, in the carrying, cooling it. That is the single great motion beneath the whole story. The something, from its first instant, has been spreading out and cooling down, and nearly everything beautiful has happened as a step along that one long cooling. At first it was too hot for anything to hold together. Even the smallest pieces of matter could not yet form and stay. But as the universe expanded and cooled, things began, one by one, to become possible. The basic particles settled out of the fading heat. Then, as we saw, the great annihilation of matter and antimatter, leaving its thin surviving remainder. Then, in the first few minutes, the lightest atomic centers formed, the seeds of hydrogen and helium, the simplest ingredients from which everything else would one day be built. And still the universe expanded, and still it cooled, and for a long while it was a hot fog, glowing, opaque, too dense and bright for light to travel freely through. And then came one of the loveliest moments in the whole story, though there was no one to see it. After a few 100,000 years, the fog cooled just enough for the first whole atoms to form, for the swirling pieces to settle into calm, neutral matter. And in that moment, the universe became clear. Light, for the first time, could travel freely across the newly transparent space, on and on. That very light is still traveling now, stretched and cooled by all the expansion, since into a faint whisper of warmth that fills the whole sky, the oldest light there is, the afterglow of the clearing. We can detect it tonight in every direction, the gentle radiance of the moment the universe first became see-through. It is the closest thing there is to a baby picture of everything. We did not have to be able to see it, and yet we can. Faint and cold and coming from every direction at once, the oldest light in existence, still arriving after all this time. It is a quiet marvel that the moment the universe first became clear, left a glow we could one day learn to read, a message from the infant cosmos, carrying gently across nearly 14 billion years to reach us here. After that came a long darkness, a quiet age, as gravity did its patient work, gathering the smooth matter into the first faint clumps, and the clumps into denser knots, until, in their hearts, the first stars kindled and lit the dark. And stars, as they lived and died, became the forges of everything heavier, the carbon and oxygen and iron and gold, cooking the simple ingredients into the rich variety of the world, and scattering them outward when they died, to be gathered again into new stars and new worlds, and, at least here, into life and into you. Every heavier atom in your body was made inside a star that died before the sun was born. You are, quite literally, gathered starlight, assembled by gravity and time out of the ashes of older suns. So that is the something we were given. Not a static thing, but a slow unfolding, from hot to cool, from smooth to structured, from simple to rich, from dark to lit, from lifeless to living, over nearly 14 billion patient years. We do not know why it is here, but we know now something of what it has been doing all this while, and it has been, quietly and without hurry, building the conditions for stars, for worlds, for warmth, for wanderers, And it built its way in time to this, to a dark and peaceful room, and a mind at rest, and the slow breathing of a creature made of ancient stars, drifting now towards sleep inside the very something it has been wondering about. Let that story hold you as you soften. 14 billion years. That is how long the something has been building to arrive at this, to arrive at you. Think of the patience of it, the slow cooling, the gathering of gas, the kindling of the first stars, the making of the atoms that are now your hands. None of it was rushed, none of it was forced. It simply unfolded, step by gentle step, from hot to cool, from smooth to rich, from dark to lit. And it was all, in a way, on its way here, to this room, to this breath, to this quiet moment at the edge of sleep. You are what 14 billion years of patience made. Rest in that. You are not late. You are not early. You are exactly the moment the story reached. Let us do something quiet now, a kind of gentle exercise for the mind, not to solve anything, but simply to feel the shape of the question one last time before we set it down. Let the images come softly, and let them go just as softly, and do not hold any of them too tightly. There is nothing to get right. There is only wondering, and then rest. Begin by trying, one more time, to imagine nothing, not an empty room, not dark space. Try to let go in your mind of everything, one layer at a time, the way we did at the start of the night. Let the stars wink out, gently, one by one. Let the light fade. Let the space itself grow smaller, and then let even the idea of space slip away until there is no here and no there, no near and no far. Let time soften and stop until there is no before and no after, no lasting, no moment. Reach as far as the mind will go toward the pure and total absence of everything. And notice, as you reach, that you cannot quite get there, that every time you try to picture the nothing, some faint something remains, a darkness, a stillness, a you doing the imagining. The nothing keeps slipping away from you, refusing to be pictured, and that slipperiness, we have learned, may be the most honest thing about it. Let the reaching be gentle. Let the failure to arrive be a kind of peace. You were never meant to hold the nothing. Perhaps no one can. And now, from that soft edge of the unimaginable, let the something return, slowly, the way warmth returns to cold hands. Let there be, first, the faintest stirring, the barest whisper of existence. Let space open up again, quietly, giving room. Let time begin its gentle flow, one moment leaning into the next. Let the first light kindle in the dark and spread, and let it gather, over ages you can feel passing like slow breaths, into stars, into turning galaxies, into worlds. Watch the something bloom outward, from almost nothing into everything there is, patient and vast and beautiful, until it fills the whole of your inner sky with light and structure and depth. And feel, as it blooms, that you are not watching from outside. You are in it. You are of it. The blooming reaches all the way to here, to this room, to this bed, to this breath, and the something that grew from that unimaginable edge is the same something that is holding you now, warm and safe, in the dark. Rest there, in the fullness of it. Feel how much there is. The weight of your body is something. The air moving in and out of you is something. The quiet around you, the faint sounds of the night, the warmth of the blanket, the slow beat of your own heart, all of it. Something, 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 when there might so easily have been nothing at all. You do not need to know why. Tonight you can simply let yourself be surrounded by it, held by it, made of it. The great and gentle fact of there being anything, wrapped all around you like the softest possible covering, asking nothing of you, letting you rest. And if the question rises one more time, as it may, that quiet why, let it come and let it go, like a breath. You have looked at it as honestly as anyone can. You have followed it as far as thought will reach. And now you can lay it down beside you in the dark, unanswered and unafraid, and let the something you are made of carry you gently the way it has carried everything from the first light to this very moment, down at last into sleep. There is one more layer of the mystery worth touching gently, and it is a strange and lovely one, because it is not about why there is stuff, but about why the stuff makes sense. We have spoken of two stubborn somethings that will not go away no matter how deep we dig. There is the stuff itself, the matter and energy and fields, and there are the laws, the rules the stuff obeys. And of these two, the laws may be the deeper wonder, and the one we most often forget to be amazed by. Because consider, the universe does not merely exist, it behaves. It follows rules, and the rules are astonishingly regular and astonishingly precise. Drop a stone anywhere on Earth, or on any world around any star, and it falls the same way, according to the same law that is held for billions of years and across billions of light years. The light from the most distant galaxies we can see arrives obeying exactly the same rules as the light from your bedside lamp. The universe is not a chaos. It is orderly, lawful, deeply and reliably patterned from edge to edge and from the beginning until now. And there was no obvious reason it had to be. A something might have been a mad and lawless jumble, different everywhere, obeying nothing, impossible to understand. Instead, we got a cosmos so orderly that small creatures on one world can work out its rules with pencil and paper and predict the behavior of things they will never touch. Einstein put his finger on the wonder of this once, in a line that has echoed ever since. The eternal mystery of the world, he said, is its comprehensibility. Not just that there is a world, but that the world can be understood, that it hangs together, that its behavior can be captured in laws simple enough for a mind to hold. There is no guarantee, in the bare idea of a something, that the something should be intelligible, and yet ours is, exquisitely. The same short handful of rules governs the whole vast sprawl of it, and that intelligibility is a gift we lean on constantly and rarely notice. Every prediction that comes true, every bridge that stands, every eclipse foretold to the minute, every probe that arrives at a distant world after a journey of years, is the universe keeping faith with its own rules, being quietly the kind of place that can be trusted to make sense. And so the deep question grows one more soft branch. Not only, why is there something rather than nothing? But why is the something lawful rather than lawless? Why are there rules at all? And why these rules? And why rules a mind can grasp? Some hope that one day we will find that the laws could only have been the way they are, that they follow from some single deep principle with no freedom to have been otherwise, so that the intelligibility explains itself. Others suspect the laws are simply given, another brute fact, a something we must accept as the ground beneath our feet. We do not know. It is, like everything tonight, gloriously open, but it deepens the marvel rather than dimming it. We live not only in a something, but in a something that sings in a key we can hear, that unfolds in patterns we can follow, that seems, almost, to have been made to be understood. There is a warmth in that, to carry down toward sleep. whatever the reason, and even if there is none we can reach, the universe you are lying in tonight is not a random and hostile chaos. It is orderly. It is faithful to its own quiet rules. The sun will rise on time. The stars will hold their courses. The atoms of your body will go on obeying, without fail, the same dependable laws that guide the galaxies. You can rest on that lawfulness the way you rest on the ground, trusting it completely, as we all do, every night, without a thought. The something we were given is not only here, it is trustworthy, and that is a very good thing to know as you let yourself go soft in the dark. So let the lawfulness cradle you. You trust it already, every single day, without a thought. You trust that the floor will hold, that the air will be there for the next breath, that the morning will come. That trust is not naive, it is earned. The universe has kept its quiet rules for billions of years, faithfully, everywhere, without once failing. You can lean your whole weight on that tonight. Nothing needs watching. Nothing needs holding together by you. The atoms will obey. The stars will hold. The sun is already on its way. So there is nothing left to guard and nothing left to fear. The something you rest in is orderly and faithful and kind enough to be understood. Let it keep its rules while you sleep. Let us gather the whole long thread now, softly, the way you might fold a blanket at the end of a long day, so that it can settle into place and you can let it go. There is no new idea coming. This is only a gentle walk back through where we have been, so that the night can round itself off and you can rest. We began with the oldest question there is, sharpened long ago by Leibniz into a single line. Why is there something rather than nothing? And we felt the shock hidden inside it, the sense that nothing would have been simpler, easier, more natural. And yet here is a whole universe instead. We took the instinct that there must be a reason, and we carried it with us into the dark. Then we turned to the strange little word at the center of it all, nothing, and we found that it is not one thing but many, nested inside each other. The empty cupboard that is full of air, the vacuum that is still space, the space that still has time, and at the bottom, the deep and total nothing, with no space, no time, no laws, which we discovered we could not even picture, because every word we reached for was borrowed from the world of something. And that difficulty, we saw, was not our failing, but a clue. We marveled at the quantum vacuum, the emptiest something there is, which turns out to churn and foam with fleeting particles, to carry energy, to push on plates in a laboratory, to be alive in a way no one expected. And we followed the daring idea that a whole universe might flicker out of such a vacuum, a something from a kind of nothing. And then we met the honest objection, made with care by people who love the science, that the vacuum is not truly nothing, that its fields and its laws are themselves a rich something, and that explaining how one something gives rise to another, however beautiful, is not the same as answering why there is anything at all. We looked back to Parmenides and the ancient thought that nothing can come from nothing, and the strange possibility that the deep nothing was never a real option, that being simply is. We found a sharper, answerable version of the question in the survival of matter over antimatter, the thin remainder left when almost everything annihilated, and we sat with the fact that we are, quite literally, that leftover. We turned over the idea that the total energy of the universe might be nearly zero, a something that costs almost nothing, and held it as the lovely and limited clue it is. We tried the four doors, the necessary being, the brute fact, the endless corridor, and the possibility that the question quietly folds back on itself. We considered the wanderers, and how only a universe that grows minds can be wondered about. We heard Hawking ask what breathes fire into the equations and watched even him leave the question open, and we found, in all of it, that the question walks right through every answer, and that this may be not a defeat, but an invitation, a mystery meant to be lived with rather than closed. And through all of it, one quiet thread kept returning, and it is the one to carry down into sleep. That we do not need the answer in order to rest. That the not knowing is not a wound, but a kind of spaciousness, a door left open onto endless wonder. That whatever the final truth may be, there is something, and you are part of it, and made of it. And here, awake, in a lawful and trustworthy universe that unfolded over billions of patient years into this very moment, the question is as deep as it ever was, and you are allowed to lay it down, gently, unanswered, and simply be one of the astonishing things that exists at all. That is the whole of it, and now you can set it down and rest. So let the thinking loosen now. You do not need to carry the question any further tonight. You do not need to hold the vacuum, or the fields, or the four doors, or the fire in the equations. You can let all of it drift a little away from you, the way mist lifts from a valley in the morning, thinning and softening until only the quiet remains. There is nothing left to solve. There never was, not tonight. There is only you, here, warm and breathing, one of the countless somethings that did not have to be, and yet is. Feel how still the room has become. The great question is still open, of course, as it has been for every wanderer in every age, and it will still be open in the morning, patient and unhurried, exactly as deep as it always was. But it asks nothing of you now. It does not need to be watched or guarded or answered before you sleep. You can leave it resting beside you in the dark, like a smooth stone set down on a windowsill, and turn gently toward rest. Let your breathing slow, and notice how it moves on its own, without any effort from you, in and out, easy and unforced. Each breath is a small something, a quiet proof of existence, arriving and departing all on its own. You do not have to make it happen. It happens. Just let it. And with each slow breath out, let a little more of the day and a little more of the wondering drain gently away until there is nothing left to do but lie here and be. Let the weight of your body settle now, sinking softly into whatever holds you. Start at the crown of your head and let it be heavy. Let your face grow soft, the small muscles around your eyes letting go, your jaw loosening, your brow smoothing out. Let your shoulders drop down and away, releasing all the quiet holding of the day. Let your arms grow heavy and warm, all the way to your fingertips. Let your chest rise and fall on its own, slow and unhurried. Let your belly soften. Let your legs grow heavy, and your feet, until every part of you is loose and warm and sinking gently down into the dark. There is nowhere you need to be. There is nothing you need to understand. The deepest question there is, the one that has kept the wisest minds wondering for thousands of years, has been asked as clearly tonight as anyone can ask it, and followed as far as thought will go, and you can lay it down now and close your eyes. The universe will go on existing, quietly, without needing your attention. The stars will hold their slow courses. The atoms of you will go on keeping faith with their gentle laws, and you, a small warm ember of the great something, can let go and drift and rest. Let the images fade, the empty cupboard, the foaming vacuum, the thin surviving remainder of matter, the fire breathed into the equations. Let them all soften and thin and dissolve, like mist, like a held breath finally released, and let yourself go with them, down and down, into the soft and quiet dark. You are surrounded by something, held by something, made of something, when there might so easily have been nothing at all, and that something is cradling you now, gently, the way it has cradled everything, from the first clearing of the light to this very breath. Rest now. There is a whole universe, and it did not have to be, and yet here it is, and here you are, awake for just a little longer at the soft edge of sleep, one of the ways the something came alive and wondered at itself. That is enough. That is more than enough. You do not have to know why. You only have to let yourself be one of the quiet miracles that is. Breathe out and let the something carry you down into rest. Good night.